Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful day. As you can see, I'm sat by a lake in Path of Titans, and I've been thinking a lot recently. Path of Titans is missing some things. And I'm not talking about big updates or new mechanics. I'm talking about very down to earth things like certain groups of dinosaurs. So in my last video I covered sauropods, which, we have a Marga, but it's not big enough. So I covered those. And in today's video I'm going to be going over another two types of dinosaur, which kind of aren't in the game in one of them, and then the other one just isn't in the game at all. So anyway, yes, if you are new here, feel free to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below. It helps me out an absolute ton, and I love reading them. And yeah, let's get straight into this. Alright, so to start this video off with, I'm going to discuss the two classes of dinosaur that should be in Path of Titans, but aren't. Also, quick mention, I am strictly talking about vanilla, so no modded shenanigans here, so no modded. The mods, they're not important, they're not relevant here. Anyway, so the first class I'll be discussing is Therizinosaurus, specifically Northronychus and Therizinosaurus itself. The second class I'll be discussing is Nodosaurids, and I'll be discussing Panoplosaurus and Tatankacephalus. So, before I get into the dinosaurs themselves, I want to explain why these should be in the game. Now, I myself, I can think of a few reasons, but I would also like to see your guys' comments in the comment section below. So please, leave a comment, and oh boy, I'm going to enjoy reading them, if there is any, of course. Anyway, I think these should be in the game because, well, starting off with Therizinosaurids, I love them. They evolved like nothing else. They are so unique and weird, and I would love to have a vanilla one in game. They're incredibly cool, and they could even bring more gameplay mechanics with them, but I'll get into that later. Anyway, for Nodosaurids, why I want those in the game. I just think they're cool, and they're probably one, if not the most underrated type of dinosaur in, since we've discovered dinosaurs, because they're just shadowed over by Ankylosaurids. So, anyway, yes, please leave a comment down below again if you have any thoughts, or, the thoughts on these types of dinosaurs, and also the ones that I've chosen. Anyway, let's get onto the first dinosaur, Northronychus. It was a pretty small Therizinosaurus, and it only came in at around 1.1 tons and 17 feet long. So that's a lot smaller than Therizinosaurus, but it's still big enough to the point where I think it would be pretty good for the game. It was covered in a thick layer of fur. Oh, not fur, sorry. Oh god. Feathers. It was covered in a very thick layer of feathers, more so than even Theri. Like, even the PT Theri, it had more than that. It was a lot. And I would put this thing at a pretty high 2 slot, or maybe even a low 3 slot. I'm not too sure because it's in that level, it's above Cerato in weight, but Metriacanthosaurus also weighed a ton. So, I don't know, it's in between there. But, anyway, let's get on to some of the abilities for this thing, because I have thought long and hard about this, and I wanted to make it a bit of a different playstyle, or more so just a different way of defending itself other than claws go pokey pokey. Anyway, so Northronychus would possess a great resistance to bleed due to the feathers, softening any attacks that it gets. But I didn't want to just lessen how much damage it takes, that's a bit boring. So I wanted to soften how much bleed it will actually take. Because these feathers, they cover the skin. Like, that skin, it's under all of those feathers, deep down. It would have an ability, which would be a passive ability, called Softened Blows, which would make it have 2 times the normal bleed heal rate. Now, before you say that's broken, let me continue. Don't go hate commenting yet. So, Softened Blows would give it 2 times the bleed heal recovery. However, every bite that you land onto Northronychus would decrease it by 0.1. So after 10 hits, it would have 1 bleed heal recovery, which is the normal one. But this ability can be lowered down to 0.5, which would give it half the bleed heal recovery compared to most things, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 1,000,000% sure on how all that bleed stuff works, but, this to me made sense. So, you can lower it to 0.5, which that is ridiculous, I think. But at the same time, it's a way of balancing it, and it's a bit of a downside towards an ability which otherwise has no downside. So this would also change the visuals of Northronychus by having patches or chunks of feathers being ripped out of the body. So on the body, the tail, the legs, the arms, the neck, all of it. They just have patches which would show skin. Now there is only a visual change, but it would go with the ability. So the more it gets bitten, the more chunks of feathers are taken out, that type of stuff. And for in-game stats, I would give it 500 health, 2,500 combat weight, because like it's pretty big, but I also don't want to overestimate it because a lot of these dinosaurs in this video, they're not very well looked at. But anyway, yes, 500 health, 2,500 combat weight, and it would run at 995. So anyway, that one's out the way with. Please let me know your comments about it, and maybe even leave some abilities that you could think of down below, because I will definitely be reading all of those. Anyway, on to the next one, Therizinosaurus itself. We are doing the big boy, the biggest Therizinosaur we have discovered. So, Therizinosaurus, as I just said, the largest of its family, coming in at 33 feet long and weighing between 5 to 6 tons, which puts it in weight on par with Acrocanthosaurus, which is ridiculous. Also, quick mention, Therizinosaurus fought Tarbosaurus in real life. Like, they fought each other, which was crazy. I would have loved to see that fight. Anyway, so, yes, like I said, 5 to 6 tons, not exactly Rex level of weight, but it's still impressive. And I think due to the fact that it's big but doesn't weigh a lot, I think it would be incredibly agile for its size, because it's bipedal, it's not incredibly heavy for how big it is, like 33 feet and only 5 to 6 tons. I don't know. Now I might be wrong. Theri could be heavier. I'm not 1,000,000% by the way. Don't shout at me for that. But anyway, so it would be incredibly agile for its size. And in game, I would put Theri at a high herbivore sub-apex, so it would be a sub-apex, not a full apex, because like again, I couldn't find a source that made it that big compared to like a T-Rex or anything like that. So I put it at a sub-apex, and I would give it an ability called Organ Strike. And this attack would allow Therizinosaurus to cut into anything with its claws. This would specifically do most damage to the torso of a dinosaur, so not the head or the tail or legs or anything, just the torso. And it would do an extra 20% attack damage. The base damage of the attack is 50, so, with that extra 20%, it goes up to 60. It'd have a 2-second cooldown and would apply a small debuff to what is hit in the torso, called Ruptured, where they would die from bleed 2 times faster. So, like, if you have, how bleed kills you slowly? Basically, this effect for 20 seconds would make it so your bleed goes much quicker. So you basically die from bleed a lot quicker. And it would, it would mean the Theri would have to rely on the bleed to defend itself. It obviously have other attacks which give it bleed. This attack itself doesn't do bleed, but I wanted it to have something that gives a reason for Theri to do bleed other than just pointy claw go point. And I'm pretty sure that's all I could think of for Theri. Because we have a mod, it was really difficult to try and separate it from mod and vanilla. So that's all I could come up with. But anyway, in-game stats, I'd give it 950 health, not as much as an Apex, but still pretty good. 4,850 combat weight, so more than Dinosaurus, but that's mainly because this thing's not semi-aquatic, so it can't boost it like Dinosaurus can, and it also can't just run away from every fight. And I'd make it run 860, which, if you think that's quick, that's slower than Tyranotitan, and it's faster than Bars Boldia, so that's where I put it. I know it was a weird route to go with Theri, but like I say, I wanted to try and make it as unique as I could from the mod and what anything else in vanilla has. So also, please do comment down below any extra abilities you give Theri, because, it's incredibly cool. I know I've not done the best with this thing. I've given it something which is a bit strange, but I'm like, even myself, I'm not too sure, but I'm kind of just gonna go with it, because I don't know. I myself can't really think of something incredible with Theri other than big claws go point. So anyways, please leave a comment down below about the abilities and also your thoughts on what I wrote, because I did write this down just so I could remember it all. Because I really did try try my best with Theri, but yeah, I don't know. It's really difficult because it already exists. Anyway, so moving on, we're going away from the birds and we're going over to the nodosaurids. Panoplosaurus. This Nodosaurus I think was pretty cool. I spent a long time looking at different Nodosauruses because I could have done Polacanthus, Nodosaurus itself. I could have done a lot of common ones, but I really wanted to find the most unique of the unique. And I came across Panoplosaurus, which that's just such a cool name, Panoplosaurus. Anyway, so this thing is not too small. It's pretty big for a nodosaurid because they're not the biggest dinosaurs, and it came in at around 1.6 tons and 16 feet long. And unlike the Anno, which you can see, it lacked a club tail because it's not an ankylosaurid, so it didn't have a club tail. However, it had some very strange armor, which was not necessarily spiky in any way possible. It had a little bit of spikes at the front, but apart from that, it was just smooth and a bit rigid, sorry. And I think this type of armor would make it incredibly hard for a dinosaur to land any specific type of attack. So, like, a bite that focuses in one part of a body. I think it would be very difficult for something to land an attack unless they were incredibly skilled. Just because of the way this thing's armor is, it's designed for things to bounce off of it. But anyway, so I wanted this thing to be like a 3-slot type thing. It's a small 3-slot herbivore, and I wanted it to be hard to kind of stay on it, if you get what I mean. That's called foreshadowing. So anyway, yes. For in-game, I'd like Panoplosaurus to have abilities that allow it to abuse its weird armor. So it would come with a passive, which makes it unable to be pounced. So, like, you can't pounce it, basically. So raptors and stuff, they can't just cheese it by pouncing it, because it's literally... I would like it to be unable to be pounced, because with the armor covering its back, where are they going to get the grip? Like, they're not piercing the armor. There's nowhere to grip on the armor. It's like trying to climb a window. Unless you're Spider-Man, you're not going to be able to do that. So yes, it'll come with a passive, so nothing can pounce it. However, for those of you wondering, yes, it can still be grabbed. Because it's a small 3-slot, it can still be grabbed. Because, like, you're not... When something's grabbed in Path of Titans, they're not latching onto a specific spot, they're just grabbing your whole model. So I kind of went with game logic there. Can't be pounced, can be grabbed still. If, you can grab up to how much I made it weigh. Which I'll get into a little bit after. I also want it to have a tail attack that's pretty strong, but not like damage-based strong. So it would cause knockback and do around 40 damage. But the tail attack itself, I picture it like swinging the back end of its body about 45 degrees. So whichever way you're looking, you would spin that way in 45 degrees, and the tail attack would also hit. So I don't know how that would work, but I wanted to do something a bit different. Give a Nodosaur a tail attack that doesn't have a club and spins itself a little bit, because I thought it'd be pretty cool to see in game. It also have like a basic bite as well, so it's not just like Anno where you sit in one spot spinning, spamming a tail attack. But anyway, on to the in-game stats. So I gave it 650 health, because obviously it's a low 3-slot. And I gave it 2,900 combat weight, because it still weighs more than Cerato and Concavenator. I mean, Concavenator is 500 kilograms. Like, that thing's pretty light. And I want it to be able to run at 890. This is more so it can run away from a T-Rex and other stuff that size, because I think it'd be a bit unfair to be that slow, or this type of defensive thing, because I don't want it to be able to tank a T-Rex, not like Anno. I don't want either of these Nodosaurs to tank a Rex or even a sub-apex carnivore, but I think they should be pretty good at tanking stuff 3-slot range, like Allosaurus, a Chilibata, stuff like that. But that's all I could really think about for Panoplosaurus. So I could you please leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of this thing. I'm gonna say this for everything because I really do just want to know your guys' opinions on this, because this is a different type of video as well. I tested it out and it's going well. Anyway, on to the next one. Tatankacephalus, which already, that is a freaking cool name, if I do say so myself. Tatankacephalus. I'm not saying it wrong, it's not Tankacephalus, it is Tatankacephalus. I love it. Anyway, this Nodosaurus has, again, a bit of a different type of armor, but more traditional to the Nodosaurid armor that we know and love, like what Polacanthus and Nodosaurus have. It's similar to that. So this thing is also a bit bigger than, Panoplosaurus or whatever that thing is. I actually just forgot its name. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. But anyway, yes, this thing's a little bigger. It's about 23 feet long, and I couldn't find any exact size estimates, so I kinda guessed. With it being quite a bit bigger than the last one, I kind of upscaled it to around 2.1 to 2.3 tons, maybe? I'm not too sure on that, but, I'm just going to use it just for this general basis of the video. So 23 feet long and 2.1 tons we'll go with. It wasn't a small dinosaur by any chance, though, because, again, 23 feet long, that's long. That's pretty long for a nodosaurid. It also had some pretty... like I say, the armor was normal to Nodosaurids. It had some spikes on the side. However, it was incredibly armored, like to the point where it was about on level with Ankylosaurus in armor. Like, it had armor all over its face. It was pretty tanky at using its face. You might be able to know where this is going. So, in-game, I would like Tatankacephalus to be more of a head-on Nodosaur. So, you know how Ankylosaurids, they either run, spam tail, or sit in one spot, spam tail? Did I say Ankylosaurus or Nodosaurus? I don't know. In-game, Anodontosaurus, that's what I meant. And basically they just kind of sit and keep their distance but spam an attack. Well, I wanted this thing to be a bit of a more head-on thing, like I say. So it would take 10% less damage to the head. So if you bite it on its noggin, 10% less damage than any attack, including armor pierce, because again I think that's stupid. And I would also like it to have a headbutt attack called Dome Punch, which I spent ages thinking of that name. Dome Punch? I don't know, I like it. This ability would have a 4-second cooldown, and it would do 65 damage and apply 30 fracture. Now, I was a bit hesitant of giving it 30 fracture, but at the same time, a 4-second cooldown, the fracture itself not being incredible, like one hit, that 30% fracture doesn't even slow you down. I think it's after 50 that fracture starts doing stuff. So it'd take, a good chunk of time for it to do that. Especially since like a T-Rex can bite like 3 times, whilst this thing does one headbutt. But anyway, it would also have directional body shove because again it had spikes on the side of it, and I would like it to do 0.3 bleed to anything that gets hit by the shove because I don't know, it's spikes being shoved into you by a 2-ton Nodosaur. That would surely bleed you. Anyway, for in-game stats, I wanted to give this thing a good chance at running away again, but it should be slower. And also it should be a bit tankier because I wanted it to be a low force lot, like a very, very low force lot. So I gave it 800 health, 3,500 combat weight, and it runs at 870. So it's faster than a T-Rex, but it's not way faster than everything else because again, it's incredibly armored and heavy. And it's also not the most athletic looking thing. It's a nodosaurid, which just like Ankylosaurids, I think most of them died by drowning in real life, which is kind of sad, or mudslides or something. I remember reading that elsewhere. But anyway, that is the last one. So please, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I tried to add some very unique stuff to spice the dinosaurs up a bit. But if you enjoyed this video, thank you all so much for watching to the end, and if you could, please leave a comment, please! Just leave a comment down below, giving your opinions, maybe even suggesting more abilities, because I find it really interesting to see what this community comes up with. I got a lot of brilliant viewers, and yeah, I want to see how talented you really are. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.